There are times when coming up with crochet video ideas feels surprisingly difficult. I can sit there staring at a notebook, strolling through my list of potential topics, wondering what crocheters actually want to talk about next. But every once in a while, the crochet community makes the decision for you. When a video gets 15,000 views in a week, brings in hundreds of new subscribers to the channel, and the comment section is filled with people saying, please make a part 2, that takes all the guessing work out of it. So here we are. If you watched my last video, then you already know that crochet has a funny way of teaching life lessons when you least expect it. What starts out as a relaxing hobby with a hook and some yarn somehow turns into a lesson on patience, comparison, creativity, perfectionism, expectations, and occasionally recovering from the emotional damage caused by a project that should have been finished like 3 months ago. When I made part 1, I thought some of those crochet truths would resonate with a few people, but what I didn't realize is how many crocheters had experienced the exact same struggles. As I read through the comments, and I do read through all the comments, I kept seeing people share their own stories, their own lessons, and the crochet truths they wish someone had told them years ago. And that's when I realized something. We're not finished, not even close. Because the longer you crochet, the more truths you discover. Some of them are encouraging, some of them are frustrating, and some of them are lessons that you learn really quickly. Others seem determined to teach themselves over and over again until they finally sink in. A few of the truths we're talking about today were on my original list but didn't make it to the first video, but after spending time reading through all the comments, y'all gave me an entirely new list to work with. Apparently crocheters have a lot of thoughts about this topic, and based on the comments, many of us have been learning the same lessons the hard way. So today I'm sharing more crochet truths that some crocheters refuse to accept, and if you've been crocheting for any length of time, then there's a very good chance that at least one of these is going to hit very close to home. There's this quiet pressure in the craft world that makes it feel like you're supposed to pick a lane and stay there. Like once you're a crocheter, that's the only thing you're allowed to do. But crochet is a hobby, not a personality requirement. You're not less of a crocheter because you enjoy other things. If anything, stepping out into other crafts can actually strengthen your crochet skills because you start noticing textures differently, thinking more creatively, and picking up techniques you wouldn't normally run into in yarn alone. Crochet can absolutely be one part of your creative life instead of the whole thing. And I don't really show all my other hobbies online because crochet is the lane I've chosen for YouTube, but there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Yes, I love crochet, but I love a bunch of other creative and non-creative things too. Shopping is definitely one of them. Give me a gift card and a full afternoon in Marshall's, TJ Maxx, Ross, Target, and Walmart, and I am fully in my element. I can wander there for hours comparing everything, putting things in my cart, taking them back out. It's a whole experience. I also love baking. My pound cake is kind of my signature thing in my family right now, and what started as a Thanksgiving dessert only has turned into something that people start finding reasons to make me bring year-round. Oh, and the bagels that I make? Those didn't even start as a big deal, but now those have somehow gotten in the rotation too. During COVID, I got really into adult coloring books. I'll put on some gospel music, grab my markers, and just color scripture pages. It's simple, but it's one of those things that really helps to reset my mind, and the list keeps growing all the time. I recently picked up a paint by numbers kit from Michael's that I haven't even fully started yet, but I already know I'm gonna enjoy it once I get into it. And then the thing that I'm most excited about is sewing. I've been talking about learning how to sew for a while now, and it's for the most random reason that I don't really want to share at the moment. But my husband was teaching me that I barely spend money on myself, and he didn't think it was gonna be a craft that I really got into. So I was talking to my mom about it, and she casually said, well, if you want to use the sewing machine that I have, you can. And I was like, I had no idea that my entire life, my grandmother's sewing machine was in our house. Remember that home economics, do everything, fix everything grandma? Yeah, that one, her sewing machine, I now have it. So now I'm planning to spend my next free weekend figuring out how to use it. And if you have any sewing tips or beginner-friendly videos, please send them my way because I'm starting from scratch here. So at this point, I'm way more than just a crocheter. Crochet is one part of my creative life, but not the whole story. I can jump from one craft to another depending on my mood, my energy, or just what feels fun at the moment. And I really love living that way. If you're watching this and you've been feeling like you have to stick with just crochet, try giving yourself permission to explore something else because burnout happens, life happens, and sometimes your hands need to break from one thing or your creativity just wants something different. And it's such a gift to have other hobbies waiting for you when that moment comes. Okay, let's be real for a second. If you've been crocheting for any amount of time, you probably already have at least one project tucked away in a bag or a bin or the back of your closet that you keep telling yourself you're going to get back to. Maybe it was supposed to be a blanket, maybe it was a sweater that started off exciting and slowly turned into something you've been avoiding making eye contact with. But here's the part nobody really wants to say out loud. There are some crochet projects that never get finished, and that's not failure, that's just part of the creative process. There's this idea floating around in crochet culture that everything you start is supposed to be completed, blocked, perfect, and ready for Instagram. But real crochet life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes you start a project when you're excited or inspired by a pattern, or you see a viral crochet tutorial and think, yes, I can absolutely make that. And then life moves on. Your interests shift, your skill level changes, or you realize halfway through that the pattern is teaching you something you didn't expect. A lot of the time, those unfinished projects are actually your best teachers. They're where you learn how to read a pattern better, how to fix mistakes, how to tension your stitches, or how to understand what not to do next time. Some projects are really just practice in disguise. And instead of carrying around guilt about whips that never became finished pieces, it helps to reframe them. Not as failures, but as practice projects, swatches in disguise, or skill builders. Creative experiments that already did their job the moment you picked up the hook and started learning something new. And it's okay if you have a lot of them. Every single crocheter does. There's no prize for finishing everything, and there's no rule that every skein of yarn has to become a masterpiece. Sometimes the win is when you just tried it, you learned from it, and you move forward with better skills than you had before. Because the truth is, every unfinished project still made you a better crocheter in some way, even the ones you never touch again. And just like frogging isn't failure, unfinished projects aren't failure either. They're part of the rhythm of learning, growing, and evolving in your crochet journey. Crochet is not about perfection. It's about creating something with your own hands, one stitch at a time, and learning as you go. And if you've been crocheting any length of time, you already know your stitches aren't going to look exactly the same every single row. Your attention will shift depending on your mood, your focus, even what you're doing right before you pick up the hook. And yes, you're going to mess up more than once, but that's not a problem in crochet. That is crochet. A lot of crocheters don't realize how much perfectionism can steal from the experience. It can take something that's supposed to feel relaxing and creative and turn it into something extremely stressful. Perfectionism and comparison tend to show up together too. One minute you're enjoying your project and the next you're zooming in on the tiny details, comparing your work to somebody else's perfectly staged photo, and suddenly it doesn't feel so fun anymore. And the thing is, most of those flaws that you see in your own work, nobody would even notice them. What feels huge to you usually blends right into the overall piece for everyone else. And even when people do notice the small imperfections, that's actually part of what makes handmade so special. It's what makes us human. It's what makes them yours. There's something we easily forget when you're deep into a project. Crochet is not machine made. It's not supposed to look identical every single time. That little variation, that slight unevenness, that tiny adjustment that you made mid-row, that's the story of your hands learning in real time. So if you're trying to grow in your crochet journey or improve your crochet skills, one of the most important things you can do is release the idea that everything has to be perfect to be valuable. The real perfect part is that you showed up and made it. You started something and brought it to life with your own two hands. And instead of letting your inner critic take over, try to shift the focus back to what you actually accomplished. Because finishing a handmade piece, no matter how it looks, is already something worth being proud of. Now this one is big because somewhere along the way, crochet can start to feel like it comes with rules that it actually never gave you. Like you're supposed to crochet a certain type of project or match what you see all over social media to count as a real crocheter. But that's just not how it works. If you love making blankets, then make blankets and keep going with making blankets. Let that be your thing. If you're drawn to amigurumi and you love turning yarn into little characters and shapes, lean all the way into that. If you only pick up your hook once a month because life is busy and your time is limited, you're still a crocheter. There's no minimum requirement here. And even the small things count. Even if your crochet looks different from what you see online, even if your pace is a little bit slower or a lot slower, even if your projects are simple or repetitive, it all still counts. And sometimes it shows up in the little decisions too, like finding a gorgeous pattern and realizing it uses yarn that has to be hand washed and knowing deep down you're not about that lifestyle. You're not gonna hand wash anything with consistency, and you already know that. that. So instead of forcing yourself into something that doesn't fit into your real life, just keep searching until you find something that actually works for you. That's not being difficult, that's being realistic about your crochet lifestyle. There's really no one right way to enjoy crochet, but there is a way that fits you better than anything else. And the more you lean into that, the easier it becomes to actually stick with crochet long term instead of burning out or feeling pressured. Social media can make it look like everyone is making the same trendy projects or using the same aesthetic color palettes just to stay relevant. But your crochet style doesn't have to match what's popular to matter. In fact, the things you naturally gravitate towards, the colors you pick, the type of projects you repeat, the way you enjoy crocheting, those are the things that make your work recognizable and personal. Your crochet journey is supposed to feel like yours, not like something you're performing. And the more you give yourself permission to stay true to what you actually enjoy, the more fulfilling this hobby can become. Not because you're doing more, but because you're finally doing what fits you. You don't have to make the trendy sweater, you don't have to buy the viral yarn, and you definitely don't have to make every must-make crochet pattern that pops up on your feed like it's mandatory. Crochet trends move so fast. One week it's a viral sweater, the next week it's a new stitch pattern, then it's a seasonal project that everyone swears you have to try, and if you're not careful, it can start to feel like you're always behind, always playing catch up, and always needing to make the next thing just to stay in the loop. But your time, your money, and your creative energy actually matter more than any trend cycle. So if something doesn't excite you, you can skip it. No explanation needed. And sometimes it's not even about excitement, it's just not practical for your real life. For example, I remember when the balaclava crochet trend was everywhere a few winters ago, and everyone was making these cozy hooded pieces, and they look so cute online. But I had to sit that one out completely because I'm a Southern girl, a Texas girl specifically, and where I live, winter is, let's just say, inconsistent. We get maybe 2 weeks of what I call a real winter, and even then, it's the kind of winter where everything shuts down. Roads get icy, offices and schools close, and we're all just hoping that the power stays on. So the idea of me casually frolicking outside in a crochet balaclava wasn't actually matching my reality. It was adorable, but it just wasn't practical for my real life. And yes, my husband and I have talked about traveling somewhere colder at some point, but it's been years and we still haven't done that. So that trend became one of those things that I actually enjoyed watching from a distance instead of participating in. And that's completely fine, because skipping a trend doesn't mean you're missing out. It means you're just making space for projects that actually fit your lifestyle, your climate, your budget, and your creative energy. And those are always going to matter more than whatever's trending at the moment. Your relationship with crochet is not going to look the same all the time. There will be seasons where you're crocheting every single day, starting new projects, finishing things quickly, feeling inspired, saving patterns, buying yarn like it's your favorite hobby in the world, because you're in a flow state where your hook is basically always in your hand and you're always thinking about your next project before the current one's even done. And then there are going to be completely different seasons. Seasons where you don't pick up your hook for weeks, sometimes months, and based on what I've seen in the comments with other crocheters, sometimes even years. Life gets full, energy shifts, motivation changes, and crochet just isn't at the center of your routine like it used to be. But that doesn't mean you've lost your passion for crochet, and it definitely doesn't mean you're no longer a crocheter. It just means you're human. Crochet is not something you have to constantly keep up to prove that you still love it. It's not a streak that you're trying to maintain or a skill that disappears just because you took a long break. It's something you return to when it feels right again, when your hands are ready, when your mind has a space, and when the creative pull comes back to you naturally. There's something really beautiful about that kind of relationship with a hobby. It doesn't demand anything for you, it just waits. In fact, I got so many comments on my last video from crocheters who've been in this craft for decades, 40, 50, and 60 years of crocheting. And what stood out to me the most is that it didn't mean they were crocheting every single day for all those years. It simply meant that crochet has been a steady part of their life over time, something that they could come back to when they needed comfort, creativity, or something grounding to do with their hands. And that's really what crochet seasons are all about. Not constantly being productive, not constant output, but a lifelong rhythm of coming and going, resting and returning, creating when it feels right, and setting it down when life calls for something else. And every time you come back to it, it's still right there waiting for you. This one might sound a little surprising coming from someone who actually makes crochet content, but it's something I've had to learn and really live through myself. I talk about crochet, I crochet, and I've even created patterns. But if you've been watching my channel for a while, you've probably seen how my relationship with crochet has shifted over time. There was a season where I was finishing projects constantly, like almost every single week. And while that sounds productive, I was also extremely tired. Crochet started feeling less like a relaxing hobby and more like a schedule that I had to keep up with. And that is not the feeling that I wanted attached to something that I actually loved. Over time, I started pulling back and shifting into something a little bit different. Instead of constantly producing finished object after finished object, I found myself leaning more into conversations about crochet, talking about the experience of it, the mindset behind it, the real life ups and downs that come with being a crocheter. And that shift has made me realize something really important. I don't have to turn my love for crochet into something that drains me. Will I still share projects? Of course. Will I still create patterns? That's very likely. But I've learned that I don't have to turn crochet into pressure in order to create crochet content. I don't have to push myself into burnout just to feel like I'm doing enough. And what's really been beautiful is how y'all have responded to that shift. The conversations in my comments showed me that there's so much more to talk about in the space than just stitches and tutorials. Yes, there are amazing designers and teachers on YouTube who handle the technical side of crochet, but there's also room for something totally different. Someone to just sit and talk with you about the craft in a more relaxed and real life way. I wish I had saved the exact comment because it genuinely made my day, but once on a video, someone called me their crochet therapist, and I absolutely love that. It really stuck with me because it does feel like I've naturally grown into that over here. Just someone you can hang out with, talk crochet with, and feel encouraged along the way. And I've been leaning into that role more and more ever since I saw that comment. So if you ever feel like you just need a space to talk through your crochet thoughts, your whips, your frustrations, or even your excitement about a new project, I am so here for that. That kind of community doesn't require constant output or perfection. It just requires connection. And that's really the bigger point. In a world where everything starts to feel like it has to become a side hustle, crochet can stay exactly what it's meant to be for you. It can be your stress relief after a long day, your quiet creative moment, the thing you reach for when you want to unwind instead of perform. You don't have to sell your crochet pieces, start a crochet business, or turn your hobby into content just to make it valid. If you want to do that, that's great. There are so many amazing crochet entrepreneurs out here doing incredible things. But if you don't, that's just as valid. Because at the end of the day, crochet is supposed to bring you joy and not pressure. But that's all I have for today. As always, I want to hear from you in the comments. Tell me which crochet truth hit the hardest for you, or share one that I didn't even mention. Every time I do videos like this, I end up learning just as much from your experiences as I do from my own. And I'm gonna be real with you. I thought I was done after part 1. Then I made part 2, and somehow I still have a whole list sitting in my notes that didn't even make it into this video. So at this point, I'm starting to think this might be an ongoing series. If this video does well, and if y'all ask for it, there's a very strong chance that we have a part 3. In fact, there was a comment in part 1 where someone literally asked for part 3. And I don't know if that was a typo or some kind of prophecy, but either way, I took that seriously. So if you want a part 3, go ahead and comment part 3 below so I know that I'm just not imagining it. And if you're new here or catching up, I'll make it so easy for you. You can check out part 1 of my Crochet Truths here because this is where the whole conversation started. And if you somehow missed my video about life lessons that I learned from yarn, I'll have that link too because that one turned into a really good conversation as well. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and chatting about crochet. I always appreciate these moments more than you know. And if I don't see you in part 3, I'll definitely see you in the next video. Until then, bye!